About Billy's position in FIGU and among the core group members by Bernadette Brand, Switzerland.
In order to be able to explain Billy's position in the FIGU and among the core group members, it is necessary to give a brief outline of the state of our world and the image that those human beings have of him who do not know him, but nevertheless allow themselves to judge him. The prophet is of no account in his own country, as the saying goes, and in Billy's case, it is fair to say that the prophet is of no account on his own planet either. This is not because his words do not stir up the human beings and would even appear unreasonable or wrong to them. The situation is not that simple. Basically, it has to be considered that on our planet, due to historical handed-down understandings and traditions, it is mainly those who are unscrupulous enough to disregard the interests of all others and only do their own thing who hold the reins. The peoples are not adult and mature enough to see through the moves of their leaders, and if they do, they usually lack the self-confidence and the awareness of their might to change something. This then leads to everyone hiding in their nests and thinking that everything is fine, as long as the situation remains bearable for themselves. This attitude of the people is of course more than just comfortable for the superiors, the governments and all kinds of exploiters of the people, which is why a lot of emphasis is also placed on maintaining these conditions, which is achieved by ensuring on the broadest level that normal human beings are deprived of much that they urgently need to learn. Things such as real reflection, factual and constructive consideration of proposals, taking responsibility for one's own decisions and weighing the consequences of them, reflecting on the value of real communities, or becoming aware that the people themselves must be the most important and most powerful force in a state structure, and that its leaders only have the right to act for the good of the people and in their service. And many other considerations are never even brought to the people and never deepened in their scope and consistency. Should it occur to anyone to devote himself or herself to these subjects in public and to explain life and its natural rules to the common human beings, then he or she immediately becomes the target of the most manifold attacks, and all those who have some personal interest in keeping everything as it is, in a bad wise will spare no means to shoot them down by making them the target of their ridicule. Slander, false accusations, and unjustified malice. This is simply because the thought that the masses could finally become self-responsible, self-confident and mature makes them completely panic out of fear of losing their well-furnished sinecures, their positions of power, their prestige, and their validity. Quite a few of these superiors, rulers, leaders, and exploiters of the people freeze at the very thought that their dirty tricks and their intrigues could come to light, and they could be called to account, thus losing everything to which their heart is attached. The so-called ordinary citizens, kept dumb and misled by false teachings and irrelevant goals, bleat unthinkingly after their leaders and fall for any mirror fencing, however primitive, thereby blindly and unthinkingly supporting and trotting after those who lead them to ruin. The important aspirations they are led to believe are exhausted in primitive cultural achievements, such as the latest concert by the hottest pop singer or the wackiest CD by the hippest music group or the biggest monumental film that one absolutely has to see because the sexiest man alive and the latest female beauty icon play important roles in it. But it can also be the first novel of the latest discovery, or the late work of a famous writer in literary circles, or countless other banalities, to which there is nothing wrong as a distraction or short-term amusement, as long as they retain their status as what they actually are, namely banalities. But if such trivialities are elevated to the status of life importances and at the same time all that is reasonable, all that is correct according to the laws of nature, all virtues and all profound values are sacrificed for the sake of the cheap golden calf, then it becomes dark in the world, And in this darkness, human beings must go astray and fall into abysses, because they can no longer see any paths that could lead them out of the swamp of false images of life that has been prepared by ruthless and evil Machiavellianism. Billy went public now 30 years ago, founded the Free Community of Interests, built up the Simya Se Silver Star Center, and began tirelessly to spread his teaching about the correct life conduct for human beings according to natural law, about the meaning and purpose of life and the necessary evolution. Gradually, in a constant coming and going, the present members of the FIGU gathered around him, who recognized the importance of his mission, let themselves be taught, and supported him in his tireless work in many manner of doings, and continue to do so. In any other community in our world, he would be the adored and beneficial leader who would let himself be worshipped, cared for, idolized, and paid dearly for his teaching. His only task would be to shine before the world at all times and to show how superior he himself, his own knowledge and his own merits were, while the ignorant and stupid members were dependent on their own grace. But the FIGU is something like Little Borum, the Gallic village from the famous and popular comic series Asterix and Obelix, which fearlessly resists the Romans and in which nothing, but also nothing at all, is done like in the Roman world. And because this is so, Billy is the founder and leader of the FIGU and a teacher of its members. But he is nevertheless nothing other than also just a normal core group member with absolutely the same rights as any other member. He is also nothing different from anyone else in living together in the community, except that he far, far outshines us all in his modesty, in his willingness to work hard, in his tirelessness, in his attentiveness, and in his far-sightedness. Although he is worlds, or rather universes, superior to all of us in everything, he never plays up this superiority, but lives as one among all in the community. The equality and equal rights of all members, initiated by him and his teaching, are of great concern to him, and above all, he always lives and emphasizes the equal value of all. For him, no member is worth more or is more important than another. Positions in the FIGU say nothing about the value or standing of a human being. They simply outline tasks that have to be fulfilled. The leader is equal to the ordinary core group member without executive duties, just as the president is equal to the actuary, the deputy treasurer to the accountant, or a board member. Neither the president nor the executive committee have superior rights or competences at the General Assembly. The leadership of the FIGU is always at the service of the community and is therefore nothing other than the executive of the General Assembly, to which all core group members belong and in which all are equally entitled to vote and make decisions. Billy, who does not occupy a special position in the organizational, structural framework of the FIGU, but is just as much a core group member with equal value and equal rights as all the other core group members, also adheres to this regulation. The difference to the other core group members is solely conditioned by his mission, through which he is called to be a teacher and herald of the spiritual teachings, and in the context of which he is appointed as the wise teacher, the counselor and the far-sighted leader of the FIGU. From this, however, he derives for himself no rights or privileges, no claims, benefits, and reliefs, but increased responsibility and never-ending obligation. The consequence of his leadership is a tremendous burden for him, under the yoke of which he not only suffered a serious health breakdown in November 1982, but which also imposes other inhuman burdens on him, under the weight of which, however, he does not waver for a moment or pant for relief. For the core group members, he is wise counselor, last straw, rock of strength, reliable and fatherly friend, consistent teacher, empathetic and understanding confidant, exemplary boss, light in the darkness, psychologist and psychiatrist, faithful companion, reliable support, beloved father, comrade, brother, and comforter, and infinitely more. For each member of the core group, he means something different in detail, and he alone achieves the incomparable feat of being one of the most important human beings in life for each. Without, however, preferring one over the other, showing no more sympathy and love to anyone than to the other, favoring or disadvantaging none, and valuing none more than the other. He alone is able to give everyone the feeling of importance, irreplaceability and uniqueness, the feeling of being accepted, respected, and loved, and this without arousing envy or ill will on a large scale, because each member knows that he or she is dear to him, and that all others are equally dear to him. None, except his closest family, basks more in the light of his friendship, his love and wisdom than the others, and each receives from him precisely what they need in the always correct and digestible dosage. For all of them, he is the most important teacher, reliable helper of evolution and constant guide, admonisher of the good and correct and minstrel of creational omnipotence. His wisdom and prudence are the refuge and last bastion for all, and the spirit teaching, aka creation energy teaching, which he teaches, and of which he is the sage, is the silent sword and the glittering light of the revolution of truth, which shows all a better, a harmonious, loving, and humane world and future, which can be won if the fighters of the revolution become as tireless, proactive, brave, and purposeful as he himself is. For all core group members, he is ultimately the epitome of a true human being, even if they sometimes doubt and question him. If they get angry with him, mock one of his all-too-human mistakes, or pull their heads between their shoulders under the loud might of his word, and see that they are gaining ground. Not everything he does can win the favor of the members, and this is not only good, but also wise and important, for it prevents him from becoming the adored cult guru to whose lips the members cling, and to whose words they become in bondage. He knows the secret of the correct measure of attention, advice, friendship, attention, appreciation, and distance. He is teacher and educator, role model and guide to independence, self-responsibility and maturity, and he does not allow any dependence, only friendly love and companionable cooperation. He rejects believers and dependents and snubs them in such a wise that they either leave for good or abandon their faith and their dependence. Sometimes he appears like a vision from a future, harmonious and peaceful world, and other times the whole FIGU trembles under the might and volume of his words. To describe him and to outline what he means to the members of FIGU is impossible, because his expressions and the meaning he has for each one are too varied. But one thing can be said with certainty and justification, and that is that each one loves him in his or her own manner, respects, cherishes, and honors him, and that his friendship is for each one a unique and precious gift, without which the world of each one of us would be dark, poor, and dull. But in our dark, disorientated, cold, and barren world full of slimy worms, like a ray from nowhere, a lighthouse beacon has risen, persistently and tirelessly sending out its light into the darkness. It shows the way to everyone who is sailing disorientedly through the heavy, black waters of his or her life and threatens to break up on the last, deadliest cliff, through the glistening brightness of its ever-recurring beam, if only she perceives it and learns to endure its glow. Boat after boat, oarsman after oarsman, gratefully following the light's instruction, some closer, others further away, but all on the long way to the saving light. And all full of gratitude for the smallest spark of brightness and hope that saves them from final ruin, even if the path through darkness and gloom, toil, hardship, and misery should still be so far. There are still only a few, but there will be more and more of them. and the light will continue to blaze tirelessly out into the world and into the universe, even when its keeper, the guardian of the light of wisdom, will be long gone.